this week because I said to my friends, "Hey, listen to it if it's shit."
We're live, by the way. So we're not live. We're recording.
Oh, you shouldn't have been saying that. What do you mean?
You're an
Just grab some water, mate.
Yeah, mate.
Wasn't my hair?
This is for you.
you are an internet sensation.
For what?
Pottery. People want to learn more about pottery. They want to learn.
You know what?
They want to learn.
Let's sucker up real close, mate.
And I'll give you the other tip. The audio guy had the worst fucking audio because we couldn't hear you on the mics.
No, I could see that because I had the microphone down here somewhere because I didn't think we were recording. I was just like, get it out of the way.
I knew we were recording because he had this look in his eye, and I
Anyway.
knew something. I know him too well.
Oh god.
And when I started telling stories about all sorts of things, I went, he's pressed the go button on this, so I kept going with it.
Yeah, I didn't.
Don't fuck
see,
around,
I didn't
mate.
think he did because I was looking at the monitor thinking, there should be a record. Little
Nah,
red light
he's
somewhere on
sneaky.
there, but he's not. He's recording on something else.
He's very sneaky.
He's doing it straight off the
Yeah,
deck.
he's very sneaky. And so I was laughing because I was trying to explain to people, well, you know, he's like a really good audio guy. He knows quite a bit about it. And they're like, well, how come he sounds shit on the microphone? and I'm like, well, that's because he's focused on pottery right now.
Oh my god.
You are an internet sensation. I must have had maybe all two of our listeners contact me last week and say, who's this Peter V guy? And I go, mate, he's a fucking master with the pottery. You should see the urn he's got. It's unbelievable.
Oh man, you should see the destroyed cookie jar I just made. Someone at work's getting married, and I was like, oh, okay, fine, I'll give you.
Someone
a
at
present.
work. What is this?
Oh, was at work.
Was it work?
Yeah, she's still at some work, not my
Yeah,
work.
get that mic. We're not doing this again. Get that mic very close
Yep.
because we're not.
So if you pull it close so you're comfortable,
Yeah.
the mic itself.
I do it so that people can't see my face.
It should just, the whole thing should just extend out.
Ooh,
Yep.
he's gonna break
Oh,
it.
I see.
Yeah. Just so you're comfortable, you can just sit back and.
Yeah.
It's my go-to when it comes to presents. It's just like Christmas presents and anything else. Everyone gets a vase, and it's just like people just keep getting another vase and another vase. It's like birthday vase, Christmas vase, and eventually they get the idea that I don't like giving presents because they're giving really shitty vases every bloody time.
Well, a lot of people contacted me through the week and they said we want to know more about pottery. Some people I think were slightly aroused about pushing shit through a hole.
Oh yeah,
Like
the
clay.
extruder.
The extruder. Whoa.
I know. I should do a little demo video of that extruder going off.
You should.
Yeah.
I'll put it up on
It
YouTube.
looks good. It sounds good.
Does
And
it?
When it pumps that out, it's just
See, it's about holes again.
it's mesmerizing.
It's about holes
When
again.
you see a chunk of clay just get turned into a tube. It's like,
Oh,
wow.
see, perfectly formed bits of clay like we all are.
Compressor pumping in the background. Makes a lovely sound.
I knew he'd be the star. Someone was going to rise to the top like Cream usually does. It's Pottery Pete.
I'm all off the curdle. That's just to the top.
Because we just did a podcast with, because you weren't here, and I'm like, I bet this does fuck all. Like, it gets one listener instead of two, and you're like,
It's halved immediately.
because you're not here.
Yeah, Pete's not here.
Oh.
We do have Phil here today, though.
What, are we like broadcasting?
We're not broadcasting live, because that would be insane. Instead, we do have a other special guest here in the way of Phil, who we've brought in.
Oh, yeah, people are just listening. They can't see. Can they?
They can see, but right now nobody can see or hear because it hasn't actually been uploaded at this point in time.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, that's how technology works, Pete.
I love that it's got toys.
I know, I've got toys. You want to play with toys? I got toys all day, mate.
Yeah, sweet. So if you hear weird noises, just me playing with toys.
Yeah. So the reason we've got Phil here today, working on memoirs. And really, we obviously go to yoga together and we spend a bit of time together.
What? This is new.
I've done yoga for a while now, mate.
Really?
Dano's done yoga for years.
Yeah, I've done it for about 5 years. man.
Phil's done it for many, many years.
Yeah.
My brother does one of those things. I think
Yeah.
like Tai Chi.
All right, so let's start the conversation with
Same
how
issue.
transformational yoga has been. I think that's actually a really nice segue there, Peter. For me personally, mate, the listeners won't know this, but you guys probably do, that I buggered my neck up pretty royally, and had to have surgery to get all of that stuff fused, which was a bit of fun. And even afterwards, I had quite a bit of pain that took a fair bit to subside, and I was getting a lot of migraines. So my surgeon suggested that potentially I look into doing yoga, but I needed to be quite cautious with the type of yoga that I did. And yeah, Phil I knew was into his yoga, so I reached out, and yeah, we've been pretty much going ever since. And mate, my migraines have subsided largely. I'm certainly not.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's transformational.
Seriously, just in a short time. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, the neck, I am quite diligent. Like I do try to do, particularly anything to do with the neck and the twist movements and things
Go
like
the
that daily.
downward dog, hey?
Yeah.
Downward dog, mate.
I just went for the chicks. That's just me.
In the back row.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just like that creeping.
You do realise no one's going to let you into their studio anymore, right?
A very good friend of mine who's also a person that lives very close to here, but he has a studio as well, and I go there, and I need to get back into it because I've had a little bit of a break, probably a bit too long for my body. That would be beneficial, but I go there. It's very relaxed. It's very chilled. I've probably been doing it for. Actually, it's going to be nearly 7 years. But I still, there are still so many things that I can't do in yoga.
Well, there are things that I'll never be able to do,
like
right?
you can never do headstand.
Well, Phil can do a headstand.
Yeah, but you can't.
One of the first things that I saw, headstand. I'm told that that's not necessarily the case because there are apparatuses that they can use or that I can use to assist.
You can do inversions without putting your head on the ground.
Yeah.
Hanging from ropes is great.
Kinky. I like it.
Yeah, you should try hanging.
Yeah,
from ropes. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I've been told that that's feasible. There's also in our studio there is actually a prop that you can use for a headstand specifically.
Yeah.
Where your head doesn't actually make contact with the ground. It's really your shoulders that are taking the weight.
But try the ropes, mate. The ropes are very good.
Yeah, I'm not up to that. I'm not up to that level yet. They haven't taught us the ropes.
Swings as well. Yeah, and whips.
Just so you know that this podcast is sponsored by our mum, who has dropped off fairy bread as afternoon snacks.
Awesome. So when did you get into yoga? Because you've been doing it for quite a while.
Geez, I've been. I really seriously got into yoga about 1993, 94.
Wow.
When I came back from Bangladesh. Started going to yoga classes in the city. And no, actually before that, it was more like 88.
Wow.
89. 1989 actually. Got back from Peru. Started going to yoga classes in Darlinghurst, Surrey Hills. So yeah, I've been doing it a while.
So awesome segue into Peru. What were you doing in Peru? What took you over there?
Geez, that's a long story.
We've got all day.
I don't.
We've actually got it like an hour and a half.
Yeah, give us a short version.
Well, the first time, I spent a couple of years in Zimbabwe, and that sort of excited me. That whole experience excited me about the idea of living overseas. And so I did an English as a second language course on top of my teaching degree, in order that I could go. And the plan was to get a one-way ticket to South America and stay there forever, basically.
Why South America?
Well, it was a choice between Japan and South America, and my sister had been to both countries, and she said, "Oh, go to South America." So I did, and and part of the plan was to learn another language. So I wanted to learn another language, and it was a choice between Japanese and Spanish. So in the end, I decided to go to South America. Got a one-way ticket to Lima, and unbeknownst to me, my plan was completely fucked right from the beginning. It was a fucked.
That's one. That's two.
It was a fucked plan, completely fucked plan, because what happened was I didn't understand that if I had a one-way ticket to Lima, that I would not be allowed entry into any other country in South America without proof of onward travel. So my plan was completely fucked right from the beginning.
So what happened?
Well, I ended up staying in Peru, and I bought a ticket. I went via Canada because I was madly in love with a Canadian woman.
Ooh.
I'd met in Zimbabwe, you see.
Ooh.
And so the plan was to go and see this Canadian woman and see if I had a bit of a chance.
So you should.
On the way to Peru.
Can I? So you went halfway around the world to chase a girl.
A lady. I went to Peru via Canada because of a woman.
I can't be fucked to go like half an hour. Like,
It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
It depends, man. Like, it's love. It's sort of like I don't know, like
It'd be the accent, wouldn't it?
it's the accent. You had a couple of beer advantage just in the accent. A boot. Craft dinner.
See, sorry, what was that?
They like to eat craft dinner. No, because I watched way too many South Park episodes. You know, Terrence and Phil, I go eat some craft dinner and look for treasure. Oh, Philip, oh. Yeah. And then I actually, when I was travelling around the world, I actually met a couple of Canadians in Greece, of all places. And we're on a top deck of a ferry going from Greece, from Corfu back to Brindisi in Italy. And I said something about, is it true that you eat craft dinner? And they went, it's cheese and macaroni. It just happens to be, the brand is craft. But yeah, we do. We call it craft dinner. And I was like, holy shit.
This is macaroni cheese.
It's mac and cheese.
Ah.
My daughter loves that.
It's a big deal.
I've had to make that because my partner loved it. She became vegan, so she couldn't have it anymore. So I
Yeah.
had to invent like cheese.
Yeah,
That's a story that we can go into.
So apparently, there's
Nailed it, by the way.
I'm going to get hated by the Canadians, but I love them.
I love
Right?
Canadians.
I love.
They
But
don't hate anyone. You'll be fine.
I know, but here's the thing. Whenever I met them around the world, right, there were two things that they'd hit me up with straight away. They go, don't start. I know you're from Australia. Yes, craft dinner is actually cheese and mac. And yes, we have heard of the Tea Party. Right? Because that's a very...
Fantastic band.
In the 90s, that was like a very well-known band.
They're a well-known band that only ever played Penrith Panthers.
That's right. That's sad. They deserve so much better.
They're a class band.
Oh, yeah, man. Like some of their albums, like Edges of Twilight.
Yeah. Triptych or whatever it's called.
Triptych and was it whatever. Was it Temptation? No, that was a single.
Temptation.
No,
That's
that was
great
a
song.
single. That was
Yeah.
a single. Google that shit.
Yeah,
Anyway,
sorry.
sorry. We do this. We're sorry.
Sorry, we do go
We're
off on
sorry.
tangents.
We go off.
That's all right.
Yeah, so you're in Peru.
Yep,
Yep. You've obviously you went to Canada first.
I did. I worked at Lake Louise as a bartender.
How long were you there for?
I was there for 3 or 4 months.
Hmm.
Fell madly in love with a Canadian woman. But there's one problem.
Oh.
She was a little bit ambivalent. Well, there are two problems. One was she was Christian.
Uh-oh.
That's a problem.
That's a
And the
problem.
second one was she was...
Oh, we've got no plan to have any subscribers.
Yeah.
We're just any subscriber group. No.
We record every Sunday, and the address is...
Sorry, yep. Christian.
The second problem was she was, shall I say, ambivalent about her sexuality.
Oh, okay.
And so
Is that problematic?
it was never going to work out, really.
Mm.
I could always help her explore that.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to.
Um,
And I thought things were going okay for a while.
Mm.
It didn't work out.
Okay.
Oh, well, so back to Peru, was it?
So, but I only found out about that through about 6 long 15-page letters a year later in Peru.
Oh, wow.
So I found out that her struggle with God and sexuality.
She wrote you a letter.
Well, about 5 or 6 of them.
This would have been
over a period of
before.
time.
This would have been before.
No, I'm
email.
just trying to work out, like, did she tell you, but she's obviously written you a letter and said, hey, this is the reason why.
I'm struggling.
I won't put out.
I'm struggling with my sexuality and my relationship with God, and
Wow.
so please understand that this is not easy for me. And so I was trying to be supportive, and
But in your mind, you're saying, "Oh, too much baggage." Run away to Peru, thousands of kilometres.
yeah. Well, I was in Peru at that stage, receiving all these letters. You see.
Mm.
And so at that stage, I'm still thinking, well, at the end of Peru, I'm going to head back to Canada and live there with her.
Mm.
But it was never going to quite work out.
So what happened next? Well, you're in Peru, and
Yeah, I moved in with a family in Cusco, a place called Cusco, which is up in the Andes. And the aim was to learn Spanish. That was the best opportunity. And my mate, my Spanish teacher, Jose Luis, said, well, why don't you move in with this family? And they just happened to have 4 gorgeous daughters.
fantastic.
And
Hello.
so I said, this is going to be difficult. And they took a big risk inviting me to live with a family, I tell you. Huge risk. But at any rate, I moved in with this lovely Peruvian family with 4 gorgeous daughters. And Yeah, learned Spanish basically from scratch.
So 3 of them got pregnant. You came back. To
You said it, I didn't say it.
I had to go there. Now, hang on, this started off with yoga. Where did that
Just
fall?
remember,
Oh,
folks,
thing.
that was Pottery Pete, your favourite.
Oh,
So
come
please
on.
rate, comment, and subscribe.
Just for the laughs. Come on.
Yeah, look, I decided that I had to play it really cool and be really responsible.
So how's your Spanish?
The Spanish is reasonable.
Oh, okay, but your Japanese not so good.
Japanese is not so good, no.
Okay. I always thought
But I
Japanese-
still have a great relationship with the family. They're really special. And,
Have you been back since to
many
Sydney?
times. I went back a second time. I ran a home for street kids for just over a year with a friend of mine, and that was an interesting experience as well. And then I've been back a number of times subsequently. I took my father there for one time. So I've been back 4 or 5 times. So yeah, look, it's a big part of my life, Peru, actually. And trying to start up a business with the elder daughter there at the moment. We've got to take people to Peru, take them to this one particular community, give people a bit of an experience living up in the Andes for a short period of time, working in communities. So yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
Peru's sort of like a second home for me.
So after there, you obviously went back and forth to a number of different. You mentioned Bangladesh as well. What were you doing there? Because that's quite, in my mind, culturally and linguistically and everything, that's quite a jump from Peru or Canada or Australia for that matter. So what
Not
took?
really a tourist location. Is it?
So something that comes to mind is the first place that I personally would go to visit should I have the choice. I mean, I'd love to visit, but it's not where I'd see myself going. So what took you?
Well, nobody really would go to Bangladesh to visit unless they had a bloody good reason for going there. So I got a job as, say, the children's director. On the basis of my experience working with children in Peru, I got a job there, and I just bullshitted myself into a job. Basically,
Don't we all do that?
we all do that.
We all
don't
do that.
Yeah.
Well, this fuckwit.
So-
He's bullshitted his whole life.
That's
Yeah.
right. So I ended up there for 3 years as their director.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it was. It was a great time, fantastic time. Bangladesh is an interesting place.
So what was some of the kooky things that you would have seen over there that you weren't expecting to see?
Oh, Jesus. It was almost a daily occurrence. I mean, I'd get in the car and I'd drive to work, and I'd basically run the gauntlet of the beggars at every stoplights. So I'd have the guy with no arms and no legs. I'd have the guy with spina bifida. I'd have the woman carrying her brother on her back who had sort of polio and licorice sticks for legs. And they'd sort of all come at you at the lights, and, you know, you'd say, sorry, not today. Or in one case, I'd give a shirt to the guy with spina bifida. He persuaded me to give him his shirt one day, and I gave it to him. And it was dumb. I thought I was going to see him wearing it, but of course he sold it. You know. But anyway, so look, it was, God, you know, just every day was really, really strange stuff. I mean, you know, you do the traffic lights, and the traffic lights were completely optional in Bangladesh. You didn't, in fact, you got into trouble if you stopped. You know, you'd have people up your ass if you stopped at a traffic light.
It's like that in South Africa.
What the hell are you doing stopping at red lights?
Yeah, I found that.
You
I found that in South Africa. They used to bip their horn at us because we would stop. This is a very sad story, but it's came from someone that used to live there for many years. And sorry to interrupt, but we used to stop when we went over there. I went over there for the World Cup in 2010, and we used to do what you do here. You come to a set of lights and you'd stop because we'd rented a car. Everyone's like beep 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 beep, and they're trying to nerf you off the road. Couldn't work it out. And one of the locals told us that they said that you don't stop at red lights because people hijack cars. They get in the cars. And when I got home, I was working with a guy who used to live in South Africa, and he told me a story that he was quite from a wealthy family, and he was driving his dad's BMW. But he was of a darker skin. This is a horrible story, darker skin. And he was driving at night, 2 o'clock at night, and he got to a set of lights, and the police officers pulled him over, and they assumed that he'd stolen the car, and they locked him up, and they wouldn't let him ring the family to say, you know, come and get me or whatever like this. They locked him up, and then they finally worked out that this was legit. He actually did own the car, or his parents owned the car, and then they let him out. But he spent 2 or 3 nights in jail because of it. And so they told us, you don't stop at a set of lights, you keep going. And it blew my mind, because we would drive at night and you'd see them walk along the highways, just random people walking along the highways. Then you'd get to a set of lights and you'd slow down to maybe 20 or 30 kilometres, and you'd look, and then you go, okay, I'll hit the pedal again and I'll drive off. Just mind blowing. It's just another. It is literally another
considered
word.
roundabouts, maybe.
In some parts they do, but there are some
If
weird.
the lights aren't working for everyone, then
You still need to keep the traffic flowing in some way.
But they
roundabout,
also,
yeah.
I don't know what it's like in Zimbabwe, but in South Africa they didn't give a shit about the speed limit either. Because I remember being in Durban, and some other parts of the country there, the big cities, and the speed limit might be 100. They'd be doing 140. They didn't give a shit. It's another world, you know.
I think most people ignore pedestrian crossings too in most parts of the world.
Italy, they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
France, they don't give a...
Yep.
Because I noticed that in Australia, it's annoying in Australia because then tourists hang out on the side of the road without crossing, and you're going down the road, you got like 200 metres before you get this pedestrian crossing, and there's someone standing on the side of the pedestrian crossing, and you think, dude, what are you doing? You could have crossed the road by now, and now I have to come to a complete stop. They're looking at you until you're completely stopped. Then they start to cross, and you think, oh, tourist from a country that doesn't respect pedestrian crossings.
I got run off the road. Here's a story. I got run off the road in Sicily. And I was on a zebra crossing, and they'd all told me, don't assume that they'll slow down and stop. They'll just keep going. But I thought I had plenty of leeway this day, and I'm walking across the zebra crossing, or whatever they call it over there. Anyway, this Fiat Punto fucking thing. They're everywhere.
That wouldn't have hurt much.
But it kept nerfing me. He was pushing me like this, and I lost it. I thought I was Tony Soprano in the middle of the fucking street, and I hit his bonnet.
They would have gone, he's a local.
And he did. He thought it was all right. So he was like, okay, well then, fucking another day, another Saturday morning in downtown beautiful, Sicily. But they don't care. They don't give a shit.
No.
You know?
It was funny. I had a horrendous experience driving back from the country areas. I went on a weekend excursion one time in Bangladesh, and I was only ever used to drive in the cities, but it's in the country areas where it's really dangerous because you've got a lot of, particularly at night, you've got cars and buses coming at you on the wrong side of the road, and they've got no headlights.
Fuck me.
At any rate, I remember I almost ran this rickshaw waller off the road, almost killed him basically, and he had no lights on his rickshaw. And I stopped, and I said to him, this is all in Bangla, I said, what are you doing? I almost killed you. I couldn't see you. Why don't you have a light? And he said to me, well, if you can't see this big rickshaw, how would you see a small light?
Yeah, right.
I like it.
Yeah, that's really...
Now you got to understand that most of the people who come from villages to drive rickshaws are cretins. I mean, I don't say that in an insulting way. I say it in a literal sort of way, as in suffering from iodine deficiency, which is the cause of cretinism. And so a lot of those guys who drive rickshaws are, suffering from cretinism. And so, yeah, I mean, he wasn't very bright, and he wasn't able at all to perceive the road from the perspective of someone in a car. So
I ran over these chickens, this Greek woman's chickens once, and she gave me the hex.
Oh,
fuck.
so you're cursed.
Oh, I'm fucked. It explains everything.
It does, doesn't it?
It fucking explains everything.
You'd
So
go back.
I was in a Daihatsu Raid or some fuck. It was a little 3-cylinder thing we'd picked up, and I'm driving on one of the islands there. I think it was Corfu, and again, they don't give a fuck. There was these chickens crossing the road, but I didn't realise they belonged to this old Greek woman, and I ran over one of them, and I was with Pedro, And he goes, "Did you see him?" I go, "No, not until they flew past me in the revision mirror." And then what I did see was the old lady walk out from the, the side street where she was hanging out, and she had the cane. And she's in the revision mirror shaking the cane at me. And then she did this weird, because I could see it, because I was going very slow, because it's very narrow there. So I wasn't speeding very much at all, because you couldn't go fast, but it was enough to kill these chickens, trust me. And she shook a stick at me, and then she did this like
Evil
hex,
eye type thing.
evil eye thing. I thought it was something fucking Dio would do at a metal gig, but no, it was a Greek. It was a Greek hex, and I've been fucked ever since.
Need to go back.
I need to go back and undo the evil she did, but yeah, she's probably dead too, mate. It was like back in 2000.
Oh,
So it's 19 years
a
ago.
Chicken on a grave, maybe something.
I know.
What do you do?
I should take a bucket of KFC or something. And go, look,
Tip it
I'm
down.
sorry.
Tip it on the grave.
I'm sorry for what I've done. I apologise. I mean not what I do.
If a bucket of KFC can't fix that, then nothing can.
Oh, I tell you, I felt really bad. I did, and I said, "What do you?" Because then Pedro's enemy, he's like, "Well, what?" I go, "What do you think she did?" He goes, "Oh, voodoo, man." Because she was doing some
Greek voodoo. Right?
Yeah,
Some
Greek
weird-
voodoo.
some
Yeah.
weird. She was doing some weird shit, some juju, man.
Did you encounter any of that stuff in your travels?
I didn't. No, I had stones thrown at the car. It was during that happened a couple of times during curfews because the thing about Bangladesh is if there's a curfew or a strike, you just don't move. No one drives. You don't move at all. And so we were driving back from the village during a curfew, and so we got stoned as we were driving down the road. So I didn't encounter the voodoo stuff that you're talking about,
the
Daniel.
juju, man.
But and I just had to tell the driver to tramp it.
Why were the curfews going on? I mean, excuse my ignorance of the...
Because at that particular stage, there was a lot of political unrest, and they were trying to overthrow the president, basically. So there was a lot of political unrest, and so there was basically there were curfews. And I remember getting to we eventually got to Dhaka, and there were queues of cars for miles because they wouldn't let them in the city because of the curfew. And I bullshitted and said, "Look, my wife's pregnant. I've got to get through." And so they managed to let me go through. And I was driving in a city, normally just chockers with people everywhere, and it was just nothing. It was really eerie sensation. It was just moving through this city, and nothing else was moving. And I drove my Bangladeshi colleague home, and it was I was shit scared because there were all these young guys on the sides of the roads. There were fires. They had rocks. And I thought any minute we're going to get just stoned here and I'm in serious trouble. But fortunately, we managed to get through and I got him home and we got home. But, driving during a strike or a curfew in Bangladesh, you just don't do it.
Sounds worse than a midnight launch of Grand Theft Auto or something.
Yeah, man.
At JB Hi-Fi.
Sounds pretty
or a
scary.
sale.
Getting out of that car park underground.
It was a bit like that.
That was a bit, even for Fallout 4, that was a bit risky, mate.
That's another story.
That's another story.
But can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
When you were in Bangladesh at this time, there must have obviously been I don't know what it would have been called back then, a smart traveller alert to say, hey, you really shouldn't be in this country. Was that made aware to you, or were you not really aware of it, or you didn't care? What was the government back home sentiment? Because quite often, if a country is deemed as being unsafe, you kind of find out about it and say, oh, maybe we shouldn't be here, or yeah, we're aware of the risk. Was that a thing back then? I don't know.
Look, at that particular stage, during that political unrest, look, I'm sure the travel advisory from DFAT in Australia would have been don't go to Bangladesh, but I'm already there, living there, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
okay.
So say the children's got to make a decision. Do we evacuate this guy out of Bangladesh? They didn't make that decision then. They did make that decision when the first Iraq War broke out, and there were a few instances of Iraqis or locals beating up foreigners, and it was then that they made a decision to evacuate us out of the country. But that particular time, during the curfews, no, we just sort of it was a day-to-day proposition, and it's funny, you know, it's like when you live in a place, it's never as dangerous when you live there as how it appears from the outside. Like Peru, when I lived in Peru during the 80s, the Shining Path were really active. And people were getting blown away every day in all parts of the country. And the travel advisory at that time was, don't go to Peru. And tourists weren't coming to Peru. But I was living there, and I have to say, all the time I lived there during the 80s, I never once felt under any threat. And I'd hitchhike around the country, travel on the backs of buses and backs of trucks and stuff. And even during the height of that terrorism, I just never felt threatened. And maybe I was just naive and a bit stupid. I'm sure I was naive and stupid. But look, it's funny, isn't it? You know, we have this perception of other places being really dangerous, but when you're actually living there, and you know you know this from your own experiences, people are just getting on with their lives, and the perception from the outside is so different from the reality of where you're actually living, that both in Bangladesh, I thought, well, it's a curfew, it's no big deal. The Iraq War, I said to the organisation, look, this is really unnecessary, you don't need to evacuate us, it's no big deal. Yes, a few foreigners have been beaten up, so what? I'll tell you what did happen, and this was scary. I got the PR manager from Save the Children rings me up. Normal, you know, weekly chat, and she's looking for any story to get Save the Children in the newspapers, right? And she says, Phil, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And I say, look, you know, it's going okay. This is during the Iraq War number 1. It's going okay, but look, I've heard stories that the Iraqi government is paying local Bangladeshis to harass and beat up foreigners. This is a story I've heard. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but this is what I've heard, and a few foreigners have been beaten up. At any rate, that day I get a phone call from, I think it was the Age newspaper in Australia, and the guy says, look, I've got this story in front of me. And I said, oh yeah, what's the story? He says, Save the Children director Phil Voysey says that Iraqis are paying Bangladeshis to beat up foreigners.
Oh boy! And
I thought, holy fuck! I said, that's not going to be published, is it? I said, yeah, I'm just checking for the facts. I said, no, you can't publish that. You know, you'll get me beaten up if you publish that. So I said, you got to squash that story right now. I'm not going on the record as having said that. And I said, has anybody else got this story? And he said, oh, yeah, the press release has gone to all the major newspapers in Australia.
Fuck.
And I thought to myself, fuck. And I went to sleep that night seriously thinking that there was going to be some, you know, this is going to be published. Bangladeshis are going to see this. So they're going to say, okay, we know where this guy lives. You know, the Save the Children sign out the front's a bit of a giveaway. And I thought, I'm going to have guys turning up with bamboo poles to beat me up any moment now. And I got on the phone the next day to the Save the Children PR person. I said, what the fuck are you guys doing? Do you realise what you've done? I mean, this is a country where you can mobilise a riot, a really violent riot, in about 10 seconds. Yeah. Do you realise what risk you've put me and my family at by trying to publish this? And they apologised profusely and said, oh, sorry, Phil, we didn't realise. And I said, has this been published in any other newspapers? Unfortunately, it hadn't been. But, you know.
That's a close call. Yeah.
And she just wanted to get Save the Children. She thought, great story, Save the Children. You know, a front page of the newspaper.
It's not exactly a positive article, though, is it?
No, it's not. It's not, but
surely they could put an article out there.
Any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah.
And she thought, you know, Save the Children, front page of the Age newspaper. You know, Bangladeshis, Iraqis paying Bangladeshis to beat up foreigners. Great story. Yeah, we'll get the organisation on the front page. Fantastic. No, not a good story. But yeah, so yeah, but that's the thing, you know. The perception, living in a country and the perception from outside are two completely different things. And It was the same in Peru, same in Bangladesh, same in Zimbabwe. I mean, people had told me I was throwing my life away when I went to Zimbabwe. This was shortly after independence. And there was genocide going on in Zimbabwe. And, well, one of the reasons why I felt complacent at that time was because we didn't know about it. Because, I don't know if you're aware at the moment, but the president of Zimbabwe at the moment, a guy named Emerson Mnangagwa, has put a ban on the internet and social media. He's closed down the internet and social media because of the protests that are going on, because of petrol price increases. Well, when I was in Zimbabwe in 83... 82, 83, the government put a ban on all media reporting south of the country, south of the middle of the country, southern part of the country, because they were basically committing genocide in the south.
So, they didn't want anyone to know about it.
No, that's right. And so Mugabe's majority tribe, the Shona, were basically killing off the Ndebele, the minority tribe. And so that was happening. And there was a total ban on reporting south of the country. The media just weren't allowed to report on it. We would only hear about it via the BBC, and my parents would send me these newspaper clippings, and I'd say, "Oh, is that happening? Seriously?" You're sort of right there, and you just don't. You don't even know what's happening. So that was a case where the sort of complacency was a result of ignorance. You know. But,
so were you there doing the same kind of work?
No, I was teaching a black township school in Zimbabwe. Yeah. Great, best teaching experience I've ever had. Kids were fantastic. The sad thing about that, though, is that many of the kids I taught back then would probably be dead. Because what happened in the late 1980s is both because of AIDS and poverty, life expectancy sunk to about 38.
Wow.
However, I did, and this is a funny story. I got contacted by one of my former students. She's my favourite student, Wads and I.
You love all your students.
I love all my students, but Wads and I particularly loved because she would get up and argue with me. She'd say, "No, you're wrong, sir," blah, blah, blah. And she'd get up and she was confident and she was assertive. She was a really impressive young woman. And when she threw on the netball court, she was dynamite. And I just loved her. She had so much spunk and life and anyway, she contacted me last year to tell me, track me down through Facebook, to tell me that, her husband had died and she had 3 kids and she had no money, no job, struggling. And so she says, can you help me out a little bit? So I sent her some money. And that was hard because Zimbabwe actually doesn't have a Zimbabwean currency. It works in US dollars because Zimbabwe, the inflation rate is like about 10 zillion.
Yeah.
And so it works in US dollars. So, and it's very hard to transfer money. So anyway, I managed to get some money to her. And so I send her the money and then I get a text message from Wads and I. She writes, she says, "Dear Phil, God bless you. May your days be numbered."
Ouch.
You sent it enough or something.
So you said that obviously didn't teach you English very well.
No, it's just beautiful because Zimbabweans talk in proverbs. They loved proverbs, and this is a case where Wads and I just got it slightly wrong. She thought she was wishing me a long life.
Nope.
Nope. It was funny.
At least you didn't get a Greek hex like I've got.
Yeah, far out.
Yeah, but I'd love to go back there though. It's a really special place, Zimbabwe.
Would have changed quite a bit.
Yeah. Love to take the family on a safari there. Safaris are just the best experience in life in my view.
I did one in South Africa and it was mind-blowing just to see, because by nature I don't like zoos. I don't like seeing animals in cages.
No,
it just doesn't, because here's me being me. I always think, well, one day aliens are going to come and they're going to put us in a cage and they go, "Oh, look at the fucking humans, look at them." Look at them, they're shitting all over each other and stuff.
Maybe we're already in that cage, mate.
Well, I look at it this way. We're one genome removed from being apes.
Yeah.
And apes throw shit at each other. And I don't need to be reminded of it. So I don't like going to the zoo.
We throw shit at each other all the time.
We haven't evolved at all, have we?
Not very far.
No. Nope. So I don't like going to a zoo. I think, what is it, the Western Plains Zoo is probably
out of Dubbo,
the best you can get in here in Australia. But... yeah, safari is mind-blowing. And the people that take you on safari, they've got some stories to tell themselves, so they're fascinating people as well. And but when I was in South Africa, people were saying, oh, but the ones in South Africa are great, but the safaris in Zimbabwe and the further up you go are really...
Botswana,
yeah.
Tanzania are the pick.
That's it.
But I had a great experience with a lion in... I've had a few close encounters with baboons. I almost got killed by baboons.
Was this in like Western Sydney or over?
Because there's a lot, man. There's a lot.
But I came very close to a lioness, a bit too close. I was spent a day travelling in Tanzania. There's this beautiful crater. It's the biggest extinct volcano in Africa, 13 kilometres across, called the Ngorongoro crater. And you go down into the crater, you go past these Maasai warriors herding their cattle, and it's just a natural zoo. And you just travel around and you see, you drive around, you see all these animals. It's fantastic. So we spent the morning there, had lunch on top of the crater. Then we're driving in this 4-wheel drive Datsun, right? It's got no right to be in this part of Africa. On these really bad roads, potholed roads with craters rather than potholes in the roads. And we went via Olduvai Gorge, which is where Dr. Leakey discovered Australopithecus, and we go down in the gorge, and that's pretty interesting. And then we continue going towards Serengeti, and then the car breaks down halfway in the middle of nowhere, and it's dead set, completely flat like a billiard table. There's no vegetation to be seen. There's only horizon as far as we can see. And the car broke down because this bloody 4-wheel drive Datsun, the brakes kept on locking. So it would just stop. And we stopped in the middle of nowhere, and we're there for about 3 or 4 hours, and we're thinking, fucking hell, how are we going to get out of this? And then my mate Steve is starting to get dark, and he's getting paranoid, and he's starting to see lions and rhinos and elephants, and he's starting to, his imagination's going crazy, and he's getting really paranoid. Well, eventually this overland truck comes by, and it's full of these, it's driven by this Kiwi, and he's got... it's a German overland truck, and he's got all these... Kiwi, driving it. And he's got all these German overland tourists, and they towed us to this campsite, which was just a few trees. Anyway, pitched a tent with this mate of mine, Steve, I'm sharing a tent with, and it's dark by this stage, and he's standing outside the tent, and he says, "Oh, Phil, come out, there's something out here, come and have a look. Grab your torch while you're at it." And so
shine your light.
So I grabbed the torch. I went outside the tent, and roughly the distance from me to you, Jason, there is this sort of white thing, and I think, oh, it's an antelope. And I shine the torch, and it's a bloody lioness, and she's just looking at me. This lioness, she's just looking at me. So I stood there, and I said, right, and I pulled out my Swiss Army knife. and I pulled out the knife, but bloody hell, I didn't get the knife. I got the bloody corkscrew. So I'm shaking the corkscrew at this lioness. Now that's all bullshit, actually. But I did tell her that story. No, I actually.
Well, it's all bullshit on this podcast.
Yeah, that's right. That's all we talk about. It's all bullshit.
No, what actually, truly, really happened is I ran and screamed, and. I shouted, "Lion, lion, lion!" in the camp, and everyone was just crazy. We jumped into the 4-wheel drive Datsun. The German tourist jumped into the truck, and we looked back, and this lioness just stretched on the tree beside the tent and just walked through, gave us a look, and as if to say, "Well, fuck you guys."
Yeah, they don't give a fuck.
I came to say hello.
Hello, and you guys
have a bit of a chat.
Yeah.
And you guys treat me like shit. Chop liver.
You treat me like shit. You bloody well scream at me, run off like some,
Here I am trying to give you an adventure.
And carry on like, pork chops.
And as soon as you fall asleep, I'll come back and finish what I started.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, what happened was later that night, we were sleeping in the tents, of course. And lions, generally, unless they're rogue, they don't have a reputation for going into tents. Lions are not in the habit of going into tents and pulling humans out. And
unlike dingoes.
Killing them.
Because dingoes do that. They steal babies.
I've heard that. There's a story about that.
It's a story. That's a story.
But at any rate, I remember that night badly needing to go for a piss. I really seriously need to go for a piss. and there's no way I was going to leave that tent. No way. So I had to sort of manoeuvre under. Have you tried that, to manoeuvre under the bottom of a tent?
Mate, I've done it in Germany. You want a quick story?
Sure. Give us
Hold
a
your
story.
thought.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
known for my stories. So I went to the Oktoberfest, right? And we couldn't find any accommodation in Munich. So the only accommodation we found was a tent city at a race course.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Rose Hill. But it was in September in Germany, and it pissed down rain.
Oh.
And it was fucking mud. The whole thing was fucking mud. It was mud. And so you were covered in mud, you slept in mud, you did everything in mud, right? But it didn't matter because you'd wake up the next day, you look like fucking Predator, like you had mud all over, and you'd wake up the next day, you'd wipe the mud off your face, and you'd go back to the beer hall. Did that 5 days in a row. So by the end of it, I think at some point in my sleep, I got to do a piss, and I don't know how I'm going to do it because I was sharing the tent with 3 other mates. I think we just decided a corner in the tent was the designated piss zone. And the thing was, it got worse. Because by the end of the 5th day, I decided I can't do this anymore. I've got to have a shower. I can't do this anymore. And they had these mobile showers or something. And so I walked over there and I decided I'm going to have a shower. No hot water. Of course not. Really cold water. Germany in
October.
Germany in September isn't exactly hot.
No.
And I'm like, all right. And I got more mud on me taking my clothes off to have a shower than I did when I had mud on me before I had the shower. It was an arsehole fucking thing. And I came back and everyone said, didn't you have a shower? You look like shit. I go, fucking you have a look at the showers. They had mud all over them because everyone was pissed. And so people were using it as like a slippery slide in the showers because it was wet. And I'm telling you now, the combination of all the nationalities on the piss, it was crazy times. It was crazy times, and people were using it as a slippery slide out of these showers, and they didn't. I don't think the organisers really thought that people would want to have a shower. They were just going to drink for 5 days. It's the only time in my life I've hated beer. I hated it because I had to get out. I had to get out of there. It was so bad. And so what did we do? What did we do to cheer ourselves up? We went to Dachau concentration camp. That was fucking fun.
Yeah. It's more fun than being in that pit.
But, look, you got to do those things and experience those things when you're there. You've got to appreciate the history and learn the history so you don't repeat the mistakes. But, that was an experience that I didn't really want to ever have again. But you got to have a designated piss zone in the tent. That's the moral of the story. If you can't get out of the tent, because you don't want to lie in it, you just have a
you don't want to be smelling it all the time either.
It's a problem if there's a bit of a slope in the tent because it's all going to...
just slide back
and
down.
guess what it did?
That's what it did.
Ask my mate Duncan. He fucking copped a lot of it.
So there's no floor in this tent, I'm guessing. It's just...
It did, but those cheap tents that have that crunchy plastic?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think the tent was set up too well.
Oh.
And so there were like puddles. It wasn't flat. Oh, this was rough as guts. It was an abandoned race course, or it was a race course that wasn't currently being used. And so it was very muddy, and it was full of like potholes or holes. So all the water just accumulated.
Pulled up, yeah.
And it was not good. So you put your tent on the top of it.
And you paid money for this shit?
There was nowhere else to stay.
You should have fucking thought about that first.
There was nowhere else to stay.
That's awful.
This is pre-Airbnb days.
Yeah, Airbnb. What do you call it? Airbnb. That didn't exist.
God, you get some stories out of using that rotten. So, I mean, I love Airbnb. I'm sure those guys are great.
They're fantastic.
No, not really.
They're sponsoring the podcast. Airbnb, a fantastic service to get your accommodation needs.
50-50 using that service.
Really?
Yeah.
I used it in America when I travelled about 3 or 4 years ago, driving from Dallas all the way to Miami. And we Airbnb'd it, and I'd never used Airbnb before this. And no bullshit, I actually think it was pretty good. Like
I've never had a bad experience. I've never had a bad
the houses
experience.
that were picked, I didn't pick them. A friend of mine did it. They were fantastic.
You got to check the reviews pretty diligently.
Yeah.
But it,
There's
that's
one
some shockers.
downside, Pottery Pete.
Yeah.
With the last house, the last house that we stayed in Miami, we noticed that the door was broken in one of the bedrooms, and I dare say somebody's had a party in it and the door was broken. So we rang the owner straight away because I found it, and I said to my mate, we better ring that owner that you're in contact with.
How's he gonna blame you for it?
Because she's going to blame us because it was fucked, this door, right?
That's as bad as you got. I mean,
And no. What happened was we rang the owner, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think she was the full quid because about 2 weeks later she rings us up. We're still in the States. She goes, "Oh, you damaged the door." And we're like, "Hang on, darling. We were the ones that rang you and said your door's fucked. It wasn't us that was like a bull in a china shop running around the house. That wasn't us." But that's the downside, because if there is any damage, I don't know how.
they're insured through
How you prove that it wasn't you.
Yeah,
that's the
that's
only loop.
I reckon you need to do.
I
I reckon you need to do a walkthrough as you walk in the fucking door.
You don't get a chance because they're not there.
Oh man, look,
Yeah, I know
The
that.
owners aren't there.
But if you
owners aren't
capture
there.
and timestamp the
I've
video,
stayed at a place where whatever I did would have been
You
an
just photograph
improvement
the whole
on it.
place. I
Are you
suppose,
serious?
too.
That's what we did.
Yeah, like
Yeah. We photographed it.
The conversation once here.
Sorry, it's fine. Now we photographed the house
Yeah.
and we sent it back to the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a professional golfer. I'm not making this up. She was a fucking pro golfer, right? Because there was pictures of her. Because we were like running around the house going, she's got a bit of a got a quid, you know. And so the imagination's running. Is she married? You know, because we're like, she's rich. This was a big house.
Pro golfer, right?
Pro golfer.
Yes.
I've seen Caddyshack. My dreams are coming true. So I'm like, who is she, right? And what happened was we took the photo, we sent it to her, but she's forgotten who had sent. Like, she had a couple of people come into the house after we left. Because what they do is, I think, you leave, they get a cleaner in, they clean
put
it.
the keys in
They
it.
put the keys in.
Yeah.
Maybe they visit.
They might not even live
but
there.
I don't think she was even in the state. I really don't.
I've been to places where they don't live anywhere near
They
there.
weren't-
You got a little safe you put the key back
Yeah.
into. They got a
Yeah.
cleaner that comes in after you, and that's
Yeah.
about it.
I had a door where the lock didn't even work, so there was no key. I mean, I don't think there was a key in the door, but you couldn't lock the door. So I was like, why is there a key in the door if the lock doesn't even work?
But this door was fucked. And she said to us, well, you guys did it. And we're like, no, we told you, remember? And she goes, oh, and then there was a couple of days, and then she's come back to us and said, I'm very, very sorry. I apologise. You're right. You guys did do that. I know who did it, and I'll take it up with them. Because it was the people before us that did it. And it was quite a bit of damage. I'm not saying it was the whole door frame. Someone
kicked it in.
I think it's a bunch of footy play, like gridiron players. They've got like on the... It's House Party.
Yeah.
I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
So it's House Party. They've had a food fight. They've gone through the door.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I've been to... Oh, look, God's sake. Sometimes they look so good when you look them up. Like, there was this lovely mud brick studio to stay in. It was gorgeous, on a farm, all that kind of thing. You show up and the directions say, go left, right, this, that, and the other. And it's like... So first, it took half an hour to find the place. You show up, you get out of the car. The first thing to greet you is a dog running at you, howling its brains out.
To my house.
On attack
your
mode.
house.
And it's like, we don't know this dog. And luckily enough, it just pulled up and started whimpering like a lot of dogs do. And they're all noise. It's like, that's not a great start. And you go into the place and, no curtains on the windows. So, you get to wake up with the sun, which is great when you're travelling. If you don't want to wake up with the sun, you don't get much choice.
And if you've got a bit of a drinking problem.
And, there was nothing right about the place. The kettle was full of ants, and you couldn't wash them out because they were in that little tube thing where it tells you how much water's in it. You can't wash that bit out. So every time you put water in, more ants would come out.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, no coffee in the morning either. It was such a disaster.
We had the opposite. There was one place, I'm not joking, she had on a chalkboard as you walked in, this is the Wi-Fi password. Help yourself to the internet. I've left some cookies and snacks in the basket, so help yourself. Oh, it was insane. But she had, I think you get a rating.
Yeah, people that are fishing for 5 stars or whatever.
She had the
it is.
5-star rating. She was no joke. She was like the king, the queen of fucking Airbnb. She was no joke. And she had the cookies and she had the chalkboard. This is the Wi-Fi password. So yeah, this is another house, and then the other house, she was pretty good too. But then there was an incident with the door which wasn't our fault, but she kind of forgot that we had told her that we weren't the ones that did it, and she kind of got up us a little bit and then retracted it. But my experience with Airbnb has been awesome, to the fact that I'd actually use it over a hotel now.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's another place.
You're too busy making pottery,
there
man.
was no one even home. We showed up at about 6:30.
Yeah,
it was dark.
there never is.
We're banging on the door. We had to be greeted by someone. Someone had to let us in. We didn't have a key or anything.
Oh.
All the instruction was to, come round, we'll let you in, all the rest. Banging on the door, banging on the windows. They actually had a bell outside the door. You could like a ship's bell. Ringing that thing for so long, no one was around. Like, one of the neighbours came out, and I think they were about to call the cops because we looked like we were trying to like wreck the place. In the end, I actually took that bell off the wall and walked around the house with the bell, banging the bell. I'm thinking, if there's anyone in this house, they're surely going to hear it. And we had to give up. And my partner needed to go to the bathroom. I was like, oh, this is such a disaster. We weren't going to find anywhere to stay this time of night in a country town. And so we drove off, and we had to go to like a public park, and luckily the toilets were still open; they weren't locked up. So I guess there wasn't a meth epidemic in that town yet. So
there will be.
And then I called him about 14 times. Finally, the owner actually answered the phone and said, "Yeah, I'm at home." And it's like, how does anyone sleep that well? It was like, you can't be serious. And so totally got up the guy, and
Might have been on the bog. You don't know.
No, he was
you got to
just
give people the benefit of the doubt.
I'm a heavy sleeper. I was just like, oh man, I messaged like an hour before we even got there to say we're on our way.
I'll defend him. I'm a heavy sleeper.
This motherfucker sleeps through fire alarms.
I have.
True story.
If you know
True story. I have.
If you know someone's coming, you don't take a nap.
I do.
So that was a disaster. We had a few of those. I was just like, oh, it's really hit and miss with this thing.
Were they 5-star rated, the people?
I don't remember.
Because if they're 5-star rated and they got
a number of ratings,
they're usually no joke.
Usually all right.
Yeah, so the ones we had,
usually I won't go to anywhere that's not 5 stars with less than say 50 reviews.
They're all like lady owners, and they were all really highly rated. They had and they were no joke.
That being said, I'm still waiting for Phil to tell us the rest of the pissing in the tent.
Can you tell me about pissing in the tent? Sorry, we do this. Sorry.
No, there was no.
We got Lamingtons upstairs, so it's
I managed to be able to manoeuvre under the tent.
How do you manoeuvre under the tent?
Well, because I was just trying to think. It must have been a tent that had a base
that was like
and had a side.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a gap. Look, it had one of those zip-up things, you know.
That's what we had.
You unzip,
yeah,
and then you just stick your old fella out,
yeah,
and away you go.
That's what we had.
Yeah.
Except we did it in the tent.
Huh?
That's what we had, except we were doing it in the tent.
Because you're fucking morons.
And why? Why wouldn't you just go on outside the tent?
Because it was Oktoberfest.
The level of care.
It was not good.
Extent.
It wasn't a good time in my life.
He's not proud of it.
I'm not proud of it.
Yeah.
God, that's awesome.
Yes.
Dear.
Didn't know what we were doing in Oktoberfest. I drank out of a Stein glass that was smashed. Because you know how in most European countries, or even here, you get the Stein glass and you go Prost. Is it Prost?
Yeah, it's one of those.
Anyway, I did it. I met a group of Italians or something like this, and I was talking to them. And I did it, and I broke the glass. I didn't even know I broke it. And it was all chipped and that, and I'm drinking out of it. And one of my mates goes, you know you've broken your Stein glass, and it's all, like, you're going to kill yourself drinking that.
Crunchy bits.
There'll be crunchy bit. I'm like, oh, whatever. What I'd had a Greek hex on me at that point. It didn't matter to me anymore. I've run over some old lady's chickens. It was cool.
So you're covered in mud. You got a hangover. You're bleeding from the ass because you've swallowed some glass.
It was bad. Yeah.
Trouble.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
I did some stupid shit.
This is the kind of reason I don't like travelling. Yeah.
You don't like travelling?
No.
Have you?
Hate it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a vacation kind of person.
We're trying to convince him to go to Japan next year.
Oh, it's awesome, Japan.
Yeah, see, I want them to take my partner and just leave me behind, so then I can have a holiday not going anywhere.
Oh, Japan's awesome. I'm tempted to ask him, can I come?
Phil hasn't been to Japan
I
either.
spoke to a Buddhist monk about this, just to give you a bit of sort of spiritual foundation for your decision not to go anywhere. I was telling him about all the places I'd been, and he said, well, why do you need to go anywhere at all? Because, of course, for a Buddhist, the only journey is
internal.
Is the internal one. You don't need to go anywhere at all for that.
Nice.
So, mate, is that what you're doing? So,
yeah, I'm becoming a Buddhist.
Experiencing the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Another
Deeper
a
than I
Sioux,
thought.
a saying from the Sioux, the Native American tribe.
What do they call minions?
I love this. I love this as a quote. The longest journey you'll ever do is the one from your mind to your heart.
It's a nice quote.
Isn't that a nice quote? So there you go, mate. I mean, just to keep that in mind when
I think my philosophy is
sitting at
people
home not
shit all
going
over the
anywhere.
world, so... What's the point?
Sorry, shit all over the world.
People are shit all over the world. Is
yeah,
that?
pretty much.
No, I think it's the opposite. I think people are fantastic all over the world. Actually, my experience.
Yeah.
There are very few. I've hardly ever met any dickheads. Well, there's a few, of course. But,
There's always a few.
But the vast majority are really great people.
Yeah, I'd agree.
That's my experience living and travelling.
You
So, mate, you're missing out on a lot.
you are, man.
All
Like-
these great people in all these different cultures, hospitality, food,
The food.
mate.
You think the Japanese food we're going to eat tonight's good? Nothing compared to the food
You got to
get
have a
over there,
Moss
mate.
Burger, man, in downtown Tokyo.
I heard Mossburger ain't doing too well financially speaking.
Are they? Oh, that's.
I'd be devastated if
That's
Mossburger
going to
went
make
out of
me
business.
sad.
My Japanese friends can confirm that, but I heard that they were not competing well in the modern age because they're quite an expensive.
What's a Moss burger?
Mossburger's like an
It's
upper
the shit.
class McDonald's
awesome.
franchise. So imagine McDonald's, but with actually burgers that look like what comes on the picture.
The burgers look better than the picture. I'm not joking. They are the shit. And the fries come in they come in a basket.
Fries or chips?
Chips.
Chips. Yeah.
Chips.
Yeah.
Decent size.
Yeah.
chips.
And the burger
chips, mate.
and the bun is glossy. It's got that shine on it.
Hasn't been squished down by
Let me
some
tell you how
fucking-
good these
Brioche.
Is that because some weird stuff's been sprayed on it?
Yeah, but you don't give a fuck when you eat it.
because it
It's
tastes so good.
It tastes so good. Let me tell you how good these burgers look. You remember in the 90s and even in the 80s, the hamburger telephones? They look like hamburgers, but they were telephones.
Yeah,
They fucking look like this.
so they're quite large.
Hamburger.
No, they look almost fake. We're talking about green machines before.
Mossburger.
That's Moss Burger.
fucking
Oh,
Is
fantastic.
it beef?
Yeah.
You can actually you can get vegetarian burgers as well. So it is beef, but you can get. Ray usually has
Mate, I can't see any beetroot on that.
You don't
Well,
want
that's an Aussie thing,
How
right?
can it be a serious...
That's an Aussie thing. So I remember being in
I
Utah and
never
going to a
asked for
diner.
beetroot. It's all you can taste when you have beetroot in
I
there.
love beetroot.
I do too, but
Oh.
it's not. It's not
Beetroot.
really.
Beetroot on a
I
burger,
don't
mate.
mind fresh beetroot, but not that pickled thing.
Moss Burger is unreal. You said they're in
That's actually what it looks like when it comes
That's it.
out,
It's got
right?
Yeah.
cheese, lettuce, tomato.
Well, they got different burgers, but they do have a rice burger, which is like a patty that's made out of rice,
Oh,
and that's typically what
there's,
Ray
your,
goes
there's
with.
your health burger, eh?
That's your equivalent of something that's vaguely
You
healthy.
don't give a fuck when you're over there, but
That's so
you
good.
don't care. It's so good. And it's
So they're not doing so well. Well, they've been run out of business by McDonald's, are they?
I don't know. There's a lot of
hope
competition in Japan, right? So there's a restaurant every
Mossburger.
2 meters.
Wait, mossburger.com.au, are they actually in Australia?
Yes, there's one in Brisbane that I know
Is
of.
there?
One.
yeah, be near the Surface Paradise, wouldn't it?
No,
How can they
there's one in
compete with-
Brisbane City.
What? But fair income though, Jason. I
Hmm.
mean, if you want to eat Japanese, why the hell would you go to Moss Burger when you can go to a sushi train?
Yeah, absolutely, but at least
Yeah.
one meal has to be Moss
Okay.
Burger, followed up by a green tea ice cream.
Okay, I'll give you the hot tip.
That's-
Okay, I'll tell you the story. I've been there 5 times because he used to live over there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so when the first time I went there, one of the first nights he says we're going to have KFC. Am I right?
Yep.
And I said I've come all the way to Japan. I'm not going to have fucking KFC. I don't even eat the shit here. And he says no, we're going to have KFC
It was to prove a point.
to prove a point. And we went there, and I'm telling you the chicken is not covered in that greasy fucking shit. It's crispy. Pottery, Pete, get on it.
I'm just saying, what's wrong with the greasy bit? Anyway?
No, because you can't.
I can't digest that anymore, man. It does bad things to me.
The stomach doesn't like it anymore, man. I have to drink a lot of kombucha to get rid of the
So
shit.
it is a KFC. It was a KFC.
Yeah, it was
a KFC.
franchise.
100%.
It was, but different.
It wasn't oil.
different
They're not.
quality.
They're not oily.
They don't
Different
use the
quality
oil.
standard.
They
Yeah.
don't use the oil that we have. The chicken is very crispy, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And then we had a green tea ice cream.
But I thought these organisations were about standardisation, unified.
See, I
consistency
reckon.
of product.
See, here's the thing. I think the one in Japan is what it was meant to be like, and then in other parts of the world, it's sort of been
you know
downgraded
what?
to sloppy shit.
a friend of mine, his brother used to live there too, and his theory on the world was, because even if you go to a McDonald's over there, and that is standardization,
They're still better quality.
you would order a burger like you would a Big Mac here, you'd order over in Tokyo. And you're right, it is standardized in terms of what the actual product contains, but the presentation leaves this place for dead. Because
they adapt to the culture they're in, yeah?
No, the theory
Which makes
is
sense,
the theory is, and that's what this guy was explaining to me. A friend was saying that it's because the kids that work over there, they actually give a shit. They actually take
pride in their work.
They actually take pride in the fact that they're working for a big company, and it is you can see it when you go there. Like if you ask someone, "Oh, what company do you work for?" and they say, "Oh, I work for Sony," or "I work for Panasonic," it's a big deal for them. And so even if they get a job for an American company like McDonald's, they actually have pride in it. They take pride in what they do. And I'm not saying 100% of the kids do. You know, there's probably a couple of kids that go, "Oh, fuck. You know, I just want to go home and do some weed or something." I don't know what the kids do there. But
Pretty hard to do weed in Japan.
no, they probably want to play the Nintendo Switch. They're all over looking for the Pokemons.
That's not still a thing, is it?
It is still a thing. There's a new game.
No,
on
there's a
Switch
new
that's just come
game.
out.
Yeah. You cannot kill the Pokemon. The Pokemon will.
Oh, God.
So anyway, they do take pride in it, but the product is very different over there. The chicken, the hamburgers, and Moss Burger was the best.
Moss Burger is just, you have to
It
do
is
it.
fast food.
It's fast food.
it is.
And I agree. You know, any day of the week, I'd prefer to go to a legit, set meal, sort of what they call a tearshoku, like set meal restaurant or a izakaya or a pub.
What about Olden?
Orden from 7-Eleven is
7-Eleven.
You go to 7-Eleven and you get your it has to be in winter. They don't do it in summertime,
Okay,
right? So you go there and you get your soup with your egg and your noodles and shit in it, and that's your dinner.
But I suppose that indicates, Jason, the Japanese have a totally different idea and cultural ethic around food, don't they?
Absolutely.
To here.
It's a huge part of their identity.
And they
is
just
food.
won't eat shit.
They will not tolerate shit.
And if you go there, every Pottery Pete, when you go there,
It's a when now.
you go on there, mate. It's either that or you come with me.
We can do the podcast
It's
on
either
the
that
road.
or you come with me when I turn 50 and we're dropping acid in the Grand Canyon. It's either that. You'd be better off going to the Japan.
Passing all those things.
That's if I make 50. That's another fucking story.
That's a story for a different podcast.
That's another. That's a long story. So here's the thing, right? It is really real. The food is. It's almost an obsession over there because it used to do my head in. Because the first time I went there and I would watch TV, the occasional crazy TV game show would be on there where they got like a guy strapped to a car and a big wrecking ball above him and they're about ready to drop the wrecking ball and smash into the guy that's chained on a car. That's a real thing. That happened. I saw it. But every channel that they have is about food. They're showing food being
Every
prepared.
show has something to do with
It's
food.
got something to do with food. They're
Yep.
obsessed by it. And I think they really take pride in it. I really do.
Yeah.
You know? And so even if it's a McDonald's that you go to or a Moss Burger, and yes, it is fast food. And Jason took me to, one night we're walking down back to his apartment that he was living in at the time. Where was that? Was that in...
It was in Kodaira-shi.
Yeah, but...
Near Kokobunji.
Kokobunji, that's
Yep.
it. And he goes, "Oh, well, let's just get some fast food for dinner." So I don't know what he was thinking, but we went to a 7-Eleven and he gets this shit in a bucket. Look, I thought this is it. It's over.
He goes, "I'm going to get food poisoning
I'm
and
going to
die
get food
tonight."
poisoning. I'm going to die tonight. It was in was it like a wicker basket? It's like a bamboo basket?
No. It's like it was almost like it's just like a fucking KFC bucket almost.
It didn't look good.
Yeah, but it's a soup. It's like a soup.
It's a
with
soup,
dumplings and shit.
But it has these eggs in it too.
It has eggs and things in it. Yeah,
But it's really good. It's really, really good.
we make it here all the time.
Yeah, it's really good. Odin's really good. But you won't... Even a vending machine, man. You go past the vending machine...
You'd have so much fun you'd have so much fun in Japan just for the fucking vending machines. There is literally nothing you cannot buy from a vending machine.
Schoolgirl panties and a sandwich. You're done. You're done.
True story.
True story. You don't need anything else. And didn't I go on a Fanta rampage? I was
think
collecting
you
all
were
the
collecting
Fanta,
all the Fanta
'cause
flavours.
The what do you call it? The bottles.
still got 'em, I
I've
think.
still got them.
Yeah.
The bottles. I've never seen the bottles before like this ever. They're like a weird rounded.
They've also got the smaller sized ones, which have only just been released here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the
300 ml.
smaller cans that you can get. You used to get the normal size cans of Coke,
No,
but there's a
remember in the
smaller
80s,
size.
There was a half can.
Yeah, in the 80s.
Yeah,
there
no,
were.
that's a half. There's one that you can get now, which is a little
Had
bit
that little
smaller.
event thing you had to pop out.
We
with
talk
a key.
about
talk about that
We
this
talk
morning.
about it. You see, Pottery Pete went in. That,
And you
remember?
could jump on them and they wouldn't crush.
Yeah.
They were so thick.
Now
I
you
remember
remember they had the
yeah.
2-hole system.
Yeah.
You
There
had
was
to
a
open
drinking
it.
hole and an air hole.
That's
yeah.
right. You had to do the little hole first,
With
and then you
the
had to do the
keys,
big
yeah.
hole, right?
You can only do it with keys.
But occasionally you'd fuck up, and you do the big hole first, and you go shit, and the air would go bang, and you'd be all over the place. You know.
Yeah. And Fanta and all that used to come in a glass bottle that was like a gallon glass bottle
Yep.
with a styrofoam label.
Yep, that's
remember
right.
those, yeah.
Now you know what I love.
I think it was the late 70s though. That was
Yeah.
It's amazing how this
Yeah,
conversation
Yeah,
has jumped. But
now
anyway.
here's the thing. Do you remember Pottery Pete? Because we talked about this earlier. Remember when the PET bottles used to have a plastic cup, a
the
black
black
plastic,
thing, yeah, glued to the bottom.
and then
yeah.
all of a sudden they said, "Fuck that, you don't need that," and they used to just put it on the feet.
yeah.
And we've never gone back. We're still on the feet. They've never given us the plastic thing back because of the environment. But in the 80s, you didn't give a fuck about the environment because I remember going to McDonald's and you had the styrofoam.
Everything was styrofoam.
Everything was in styrofoam.
No such thing
No
as
one gave
recycling.
a fuck. And you'd open up the styrofoam. I think blue was the McFish. Don't remember.
Oh,
Fillet of fish.
A fillet of fish, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But wasn't it a fillet of fish?
Fillet
It was
of fish,
never
right?
the
Yeah.
McFish. A fillet of fish. McFish is better.
McFish is better. I'm surprised
McFish!
that they're what
What are they thinking?
fucking McDonald's marketing team, get on that.
Get on it. Fillet of fish was blue.
Ah.
The junior burger was white, but it had like orangey type writing.
Yep.
And the Big Mac was...
It's red. My memories.
No, I don't think it was.
I always remember red
Because
for
the
a Big Mac.
McFeast was a funny colour as well. That might have been the origin colour.
You had a quarter pounder as well.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I never really ate the quarter pounders back in the 80s. I don't eat Macca's
Don't
now.
eat
I
Macca's at all. Anyway.
I haven't had
Yeah.
Macca's since 2010, and that was in South Africa. Because there was nowhere else to eat.
The last time I had Macca's was in China because it was the only place that I felt that I was not going to get food poisoning in that particular town. Because, yeah, you've been there.
I was there. Talk about cultures.
The town that will not be mentioned.
So
because
Phil,
we love China.
I need Phil to go to China to experience it.
Okay.
It's on his bucket list. It's going to happen. I'll take him there if I have
It's a country of
Contrasts.
big extremes, but the extremes aren't like there's no resentment in those extremes yet. I think there will be, but not yet. And so when we went, we were in a town where there was people that were relatively affluent, I would say,
Some were.
driving
Some
decent
were.
cars and
Yeah,
that.
some were
were-
driving-
but
yep.
some had nothing to their name. I remember there was one place we went to. I don't know why we ended up there. They were friends of your friends of the friends of the friends. If I had $1 for every fucking friend and second, third, fourth, fifth cousin, I'd be rich. But we were invited to one house, and all they had in that house was just a mattress on the floor. And they couldn't do enough for us. They wanted us to have food. They wanted us to stay for tea. But all they had a mattress on the floor. And it blew my mind because then I'm thinking there's something in this because why are these people so hospitable? But if I go back home, no one gives a fuck. I could be dying and stabbed on the street. He's right.
Yeah, nobody gives a shit, right?
He's
Culturally, it's a very different place.
Isn't that sad? Like the less you have, the more hospitable you are. But the more you have, the less hospitable you are. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
I know I'm talking shit. I always do.
I know Phil's he's got something he wants to add to this conversation. I can tell.
He wants to say, you're pulling shit out of your ass right now. You can do it.
Huh?
You can do it.
You can tell him to fuck off.
You can tell me to fuck off. I'm done with this podcast. It's getting too hot for me. Like,
a little bit longer. We'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
do you agree or disagree on that? Do you think that people, because you've travelled probably arguably more than any of us here, and you've obviously seen a lot more in the third world, arguably, I would say. Would you kind of sort of agree that those that have less tend to be more hospitable than those that have more?
Look, yeah. Some of the best hospitality I've experienced has been in really poor villages.
That's my
in
experience.
Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you arrive in the village, people come and grab you, you go and sit in this little hut which is made of jute and mud, and there's nothing in this hut except what they call the chocky, which is a bed base and a bamboo mat on top of the chocky, and there's a little earthen stove out the front, and out comes the jackfruit and the rice and the coconut water, or they'll go and get you. The best one though was, I remember in Peru, this little girl called Maribella, and I was sleeping after travelling in the back of a truck all day. I was sleeping in this park. I just crashed in this park because I'd been lying on bags of onions all night, and it stunk of onions, and my body was bloody sore. And I was sleeping in this park, and I woke up and she's just sitting right in front of me, and she's got these 2 dirty feet. And anyway, we got talking, and she said, the only thing I want in my life is I just want a basketball and a pair of shoes. That's what I want. I said, that's a great story. And then it got a little bit uncomfortable for me, and I was thinking, she wants me to give her money. How am I going to get out of this? She's a nice kid. But anyway, I walk away, and then she later comes and grabs me, and she says, I want to take you to see my auntie. And she takes me through these slums of this Nazca. It was in Nazca in Peru. And as I'm entering this slum, this couple are having a fight. And literally, the guy blew the house down because the house was made of just bamboo, right? And he literally blew it down. They're having this argument, and this house just collapses. It's because these two are having a domestic. The whole bloody thing just collapsed. He pulled the house down. Anyway, so I'm invited into this house, this really basic house, which is just bamboo walls and a dirt floor. And the auntie, who is to this day one of the sexiest women I've ever met in my life, she was just drop-dead gorgeous.
Ring-a-ding-ding.
She says to Maribella, "Can you go and get some food?" And so she gave her money, and she came back with chicken, chips, and a Coca-Cola, which was a big deal.
That would have been huge, yeah.
Huge, big deal. And anyway, I'm sitting there eating with this gorgeous woman. And she eats the chicken, and she spits it out on the floor, which sort of ruined the mood. Ruined the mood a little bit.
We'll have to improve on that, darling. If we're going to be a deal, we've got to talk about that.
But yeah. So they knew me from nobody. Didn't know me from Adam, and they've invited me into their home. They've spent a lot of money for a really dirt poor family, literally dirt poor, to feed me a really good meal, and then spent the night dancing with the auntie there was this big dance in the township, and so it was all dust being spewed up and under these sort of orange lights and this really eerie sort of surreal feel. And then I just disappeared at about 2:00 in the morning to hop a bus to keep on travelling. But that sort of experience, and I've experienced that in Africa, I've experienced that in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is just the most generous, hospitable people I've ever met, and you can never go to a house of a Bangladeshis, and there's got to be 3 types of meat. You've got your mutton, you've got your goat and chicken, or some sort of variation of that. But you've always got you don't have pork, of course.
Of course.
Yep. But the hospital thing to do is to serve the visitor 3 types of meat. So 3 types of meat curries. You might have fish, you might have prawns. You've got to have 3 types. And so I do agree with you to some extent that's true. That some of the really most hospitable experiences I've had with really, really poor people in villages.
Yeah.
And in Peru, funny experience with my daughter recently. Visited this village in the Andes because I was going there to check out this village. The aim is that hopefully one day soon I'll be taking travellers there to go and stay in this community. At any rate, so what do? I'm with my daughter and Cheryl, my wife, and they sit us down to lunch. And I can hear this squeaking in the house, and I think, guinea pigs. And I know what happens when you visit an Andean family as a guest. They serve you a guinea pig. That's what you do for a guest. And I'm thinking, my daughter has a guinea pig as a pet.
This ain't going to end well.
This isn't going to end well. So I just quietly lean over to my daughter Maya and I say, Maya, I just want you to be prepared for this. You're going to get a guinea pig dumped right in front of you in a second, a roasted guinea pig. Just be ready for that. And so sure enough, the guinea pig comes out, and it's a guinea pig. It's got a red chili in its mouth. Like that, it's the whole full bloody guinea pig, roasted, plonked in front of my daughter, and she handles it so well. She said she just quietly said, "Oh, Dad, I don't think I can eat this."
Yeah.
I said, "Don't worry,
I will.
It's tough.
I'll eat it." And so, but yeah, really, 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 the poorest of the poor,
Yeah.
and incredible generosity. And another story is what really shocked me was discovering that in these villages, rich steal from the poor all the time. This was something I sort of wasn't up for. I remember sitting with this really poor Bangladeshi guy, and I was having a conversation with him. I said, "What do you normally eat?" He said, we're very poor. We just eat rice and dal." And I said, "Oh, but I noticed you've got a few chickens running around." And he said, "Oh, yeah, but he said poor, rich families, rich kids come and steal our chickens all the time." And I was just sort of shocked, that the poorest are the most vulnerable as well. And so these bloody rich people in the village, these rich kids would come and they would steal these chickens from these poorest of the poor Bangladeshi villages. And I said, "Oh, but you've got a dog there." And he said, "Oh, you bark, but
You won't do anything. Yeah.
You won't do anything." And so these rich kids come at night, they steal the chickens, piss off with them. And so leaving these poor Bangladeshi villagers to just eat their dal and rice.
You need a better dog. Yeah.
Need a better dog.
Need better dogs.
Yeah, or a gun.
But that was the same in Peru as well. Rich people in the village who were known to everybody would come and steal the maize harvest. Of the poor.
Yeah.
And you sort of think of, you have these idealised image in your mind of these villages where there's this, people know each other, they're supportive of each other, and there's kindness and generosity. And then you discover,
but at the end of the day, it's dog eat dog.
There's this bloody meanness and bastardry that goes on, even in these really poor villages, that you sort of have this idyllic image of kindness and peace and generosity and cooperation. And you realise that it's just rich people exploiting poor people. It goes on even in the poorest villages.
I mean, I think about this. I went to Lesotho, which is smack bang in the middle of South Africa. It's its own independent nation. You got to put your passport in at the gates and all that stuff, but it's like a tiny little country within South Africa.
Yep.
And I remember going there, and there was a lady who was more than happy to share with her some bread that she'd baked that morning. And she lived, and this is the highest point in Africa. It's like on a very large mountain, and it's got a glacier. It's unreal. It looks like the moon in places.
Yeah, up in the Drakensberg.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And so this lady was made bread, and she wanted us to try some, and she had some tea, and she was living in a dung hut. So it was like made out of cow dung, and it was a hut, and she had the fire on, so it was kind of like the cow shit was making the place warm, and all that stuff. And she couldn't help. She was so happy that people were in the house. And I'm thinking, okay, so would anyone in, like, Double Bay or Toorak in Melbourne do this shit? No.
No
you know
chance,
what I mean? And that's where I got that concept from. And also that time we were in China when they invited Jason and I into this house, and all they had was a mattress on the floor. They had a house, but they had a mattress, and that was it. But they couldn't help us enough or give us enough food. And then I went to probably the more extreme in Africa, where she was in a hut, had a fire, had this like cloth to sleep on the dirt, and she was making bread, and she was happy to give out the bread. And I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty intense. And I had the bread, and it gave me the runs, but fuck, that's another story. But you know what I mean? I wouldn't.
Thought that counts.
There's a thought that counts.
It's a thought that counts. But that's where I'm like, It's interesting, isn't it?
I think you can
Very,
learn, you can
very,
learn,
very
which
few.
is for me why travel's so important. You learn so much about how to be a better person when you go see these places, right?
You know, for me, you learn,
It expands your mind in so many different ways.
Here it is. Here it is, Australia Day. Last time I checked, it is.
Oh, is that today?
It's today.
Oh,
Yeah.
for goodness.
So for me, traveling was always about appreciating Australia more. The further I went away from it,
but I agree with you up to a point, though, Jason. But it depends what mentality you travel with. Because I'm sure you've had this experience yourself. That I've met expatriates living overseas, and basically they just use their experience to confirm their sort of sense of cultural superiority.
There is elements of that, absolutely.
People who cut themselves off from local communities, don't mix with locals. And you've seen the ugly Australian traveller everywhere you go.
Yep.
And they basically use their travel experience to confirm their own narrow-minded, arrogant view of the world.
Absolutely.
So yes, I agree. If you travel with an open mind, but if you travel to reinforce your
look how much better we are, ha ha ha, sort of, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've had less experience with that, but I have seen it, and I have had that cringy moment of, man.
Like there's people that I lived and worked with in Japan that had lived there for 20 years and could barely say thank you in Japanese. It's like, and for me, it wasn't that I was upset with them for that. It wasn't because I saw them as being overly arrogant. I just saw it as a missed opportunity. It's like you're missing out on so much enjoyment being here with, if you know the language and the culture. And I'm not saying I know it overly deeply, right? But to have that little inwards conversation with a local and to get to know,
it makes all the difference.
It makes so much difference.
The best travel experience I ever had was when I was traveling with a group of I had two mates with me. We were backpacking around Europe, and we went to America after that. I was away for about 4 months.
You were gone for ages.
I was gone for ages. Anyway, one of these guys I'd worked with, and he said he was going to be in Europe at the same time I was, and would meet up. And I'm like, cool, because he'd been there before. And we met up, and I said, well, what's the plan? He goes, oh, look, I got a friend, and she's got a friend, and they're quite happy for us to stay in their place in Florence, in Italy. And I'm like, oh, cool. And so for about, I'd say 5 or 6 days, we actually stayed with locals. Like, we went out with the locals. We went to where they went out. They went to work.
You realised how un-Italian you were, despite coming from an Italian.
Oh, it was. Well, they can smell you a mile away because you know why? Because you're not there all the time. You don't go to the same coffee shop in the morning.
No, that's it.
That you're a stranger, right? It doesn't matter if you can speak baby Italian like I could, and maybe order a dinner or maybe get on the bus or whatever. That means shit because they can hear it in your accent and they can see by the way that you dress. You don't fit in. But that didn't mean that they weren't friendly with us, because they were, because they knew that we were trying, or I was trying to communicate with them, and they went, English better. better
Give the fuck up, white boy.
I'll never forget. They were like, better for both if we speak English. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm with you on that. But when you hang out with the locals and you're in the local scene, it's a very different experience to getting on the bus and being taken to the tourist traps.
Right, and then
snap, get back on the bus, snap on the photos, get back on the bus or the train or whatever it is. And those are the best experiences that you can have. But the experiences that I've had where I've been taken into people's homes and they've got nothing, right? I mean, in real world terms of wealth, they've got nothing, right? And I was thinking, well, here we are. We get fixated on superannuation and retirement and all this shit.
Yeah, first world
problems. Oh, my blood
right?
pressure's high. Well, fuck. They live in a mud hut, and all she's got to do is making the bread. Does she give a fuck about superannuation and her retirement plans? And she's working this job she hates. No, right? Yeah, so I don't know who's better off.
Whenever someone asks me who inspires you, I always see Bangladeshi village women. I've never met more inspiring people in my life.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Some of the people, the women who work for us in the village, one I'm thinking of in particular, Mobby Roon, who just worked 3 jobs. She was married off to a disabled man. she had no choice in the matter. Arranged marriage.
Yeah.
And she's lumped with this disabled guy. She's looking after him. She's got 3 jobs. She's working for Save the Children. She's cooking and cleaning and doing a few other jobs besides. And just a really, really gracious, beautiful, lovely soul. Just triumphing in the face of all sorts of adversity. And, a Bangladeshi village is a really hard place to live and survive. As idyllic and beautiful as it looks from the outside, it's just hell, really.
Well, that's because humans have fucked it up. At the end of the day, if there was no humans, I'm sure it'd be a very picturesque and beautiful place.
Well, it looks picturesque and beautiful, but the realities.
The realities of the harshness of human life is very, very, and life, unfortunately, in those places is very cheap, isn't it? In a lot of places, like arranged marriage, okay, whatever. You can only have a son or
Mate,
whatever.
there ain't any OH&S in some of those places.
I used to chat with the local guy whose official one of his official jobs in the community was to he was the official marriage arranger, and he'd go around
make a mozza, right?
And he used to they families would pay him to find a daughter. Bride for their son and vice versa. And
I work with a guy. I worked with a young a Bangladeshi guy at the company I worked with for many years. He was a young guy, and he obviously had been and raised in Australia, but the expectation was that he'd have an arranged marriage.
Yeah,
and
he's still true, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Because this guy, whenever he had annual leave, he went back to Bangladesh. Because his parents had lined up a number of
people. He had to go to the lineup.
He went through the lineup. And here's the tragedy of it all. He actually fell for a girl that he met in England that was a Bangladeshi, that was on the outer of being the second or third or fourth cab off the rank if the preferred girl didn't want to get married with him or the family had a disagreement, whatever the fuck. And the thing was, this fell through. The one he actually wanted that was arranged fell through, so he had to go through the ranks again. And he was mortified, this guy, because every time he had holidays, he was over in Bangladesh going through the rigmarole of, okay, the family's invited this other girl for dinner, and her family are there, and it's a big deal, and they want me to like her, and I don't like her, and, the pressure, the pressure, because I used to joke with him, because I'm a fucking idiot, because I'd say, well, fuck it, I reckon it'd be great. Because
someone, mate, give me a bride.
Fuck, give me a bride. It's done. Tick it off the list. I can't be fucked doing it. Like, if someone does it for me, done. I'll tick it off the list. But he says, no, man, you don't get it. Because I was being a dickhead. He goes, you don't get it. He goes, it's actually really stressful. Because he knows, my family tells me when I can take my holidays. Because then I've got to go back on the plane to go to Bangladesh. And I've got, the families are they're all over there. And he goes, I already know who they picked out because they're sending me the emails and the pictures and they're telling me all about this girl and she doesn't speak English or whatever it is, and then I've got to get off the plane and it's the pressure. He goes, you don't understand what the pressure's like. And I go, well, I can't speak for that culture. I'm not going to go into that topic, but it was very stressful for him,
Yeah, there was. I know what you're talking about. The landlord of the flat we were living in, his daughter was living in Canada, and so they brought her to Bangladesh to find a husband, and they went through the whole rigmarole, interviews with this number of guys, and eventually they decided on a guy, and they arranged the wedding, and we went to the wedding, and in a Muslim Bangladeshi wedding, the groom sits in one room and the bride sits in the other room, and you go and interact with them separately. And the men eat in one room and the women eat in another room. And Cheryl was describing this very, very funny experience. There were shifts in eating, right? And she was in the second shift. And by the way, the guy looked completely miserable. He's sitting there. Yeah. And the daughter of the landlord was a lovely, lovely woman. And we went and spoke to the guy, and I thought, he's a miserable bastard. And I said, how, you're looking forward to go to Canada? Huh? What?
Canada? What?
Canada? What?
I'm not leaving.
I thought, Jesus.
No, this is going to end.
This isn't going to work well. But and true enough, they were divorced in about 3 weeks, which was a huge shame for the family. But the wedding was hysterical because Cheryl was in the second shift of eating for the women, and she goes into the room, and the guy, there's a guy there who's organising all the food, and it was biryani, right? And he goes round and he gets all the leftover biryani from all the plates of the first shift. He puts it all into this metal container, sort
Heats
of
it up a bit,
pats it down, and makes it nice, with his hands.
I got the runs already. Thinking
And then
Campylobacter.
Then he goes and serves it out on the plates.
Oh,
But then he goes and wipes his hands on this white curtains in the room. He's so
come on, man. Come on.
What could go wrong? You can just imagine Dad going off his fucking the food technologist.
The food's not prepared well enough, all this sort of shit. But the pressure's huge for these guys.
Yeah, it is.
Because I said to him, because I was a dick. I was a dick to him.
But what's worse about this? The pressure on the male might be something, Daniel, but the
female,
real pressure's on the woman.
Yeah.
Because in the dowry system, as a woman, you've got to come up with sufficient dowry, and there are just so many cases in Bangladesh where the women's family couldn't come up with enough dowry,
Yep.
and they end up getting acid thrown in their faces, killed,
Yep.
because they couldn't come up with enough dowry. So the dowry system is the real tyranny. I mean, it's pressure for the bloke, but the real pressure is for the woman's family.
Yeah. That's what he was.
That's where the real pressure.
That's what he
is.
was saying, because I kind of, he's a lot younger than me, and it was kind of his first big job, and he was trying to make it on his own. He was trying to break the apron strings. That's the only way I can describe it, of his family. He was trying to be his own person, and it was very hard for him because he kept like the Godfather. He kept getting pulled back in.
pulling me back.
They could, so every holiday he took, he was in Bangladesh. And he was constantly getting the photos and the emails, and the only time that he actually was really keen on a girl that he wanted to potentially be with, the dowry system prevented him from having what he wanted. Because I asked him, I said, well, what's going on? He goes, oh, no, the family isn't good enough.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was all that was said. The family's not good enough.
Yeah.
And then, because we're dicks, we were making jokes. So they didn't have a goat or fucking 3 goats, and there was, and it was bad taste, But that was it, because the one he liked, and the sad thing about it was the girl that he was interested in, that was in the part of the scene, was communicating with him really frequently, and was in London. Because she was trying to break the apron strings as well.
Why didn't you ask him? Why didn't you just say to him, look,
fuck it all. Go do what you want.
Go and marry the woman.
I did.
Tell your mum that's what you want to do.
I did.
And what was his response?
I did. Because I'm an idiot. And I said to him, look, man, I won't mention the name. I go, look, man. Firstly, I said, it sounds pretty fucking sweet to me. You get your pick. He goes, you don't get your pick. Because then he explained it. And I said, okay. And then he was telling me about, because we would add him fucking out,
because
the whole time.
Bangladeshis do elope. They do break.
And I said to him,
they do break.
I said to him,
the tradition.
Because I said to him,
say, look,
fuck this shit.
Yeah, I said to him, listen, man, why don't you just say, fuck it, mum, whatever. I'm going to go and I'm going to get this girl from London. I talk to her all the time. We've got a lot in common. We get along really well.
Could have said it could be worse. I'm going to go marry an Aussie chick.
I'm actually going to take my holidays next time, and I'm going to London.
That wouldn't end well,
right?
would it?
And I'm going to spend time with her. We went over all this shit because this guy was miserable, right? And he said to me, "You don't understand the pressure my mum puts on me."
Oh, that's just.
But he was serious, man. He was like, "You don't get it." And if my mum doesn't put the shit on me, the old man puts the shit on me.
But in my personal experience, mothers get over that shit.
Yeah, but I don't think you understand their culture.
I understand my wife's culture, which when we turned around and said, well, I'm getting married and I'm pregnant with the baby from an...
you fucked up. You fucked up.
You can just imagine how well that shit went down.
Mate, I was there. Here's the story.
Look at Pete.
Here's the story. And this is not a funny one either. This is a real... So he says to me, do you want to come on holiday and we'll start off in Japan? And by this stage, I like Japan a lot because the first time I didn't really like it. So the second and third time, I'm cool with it. Fourth time, he goes, come over. We'll spend a week in Japan. I want you to meet this girl I've met that I'm engaged to. And I'm like... And I think Mum was like, yeah, please go on a reconnaissance mission and sort out what your brother's doing. And I get over there, meet his wife, now our wife. And
My wife, not our wife.
Whatever the fuck. It's been a long podcast.
Wrong religion.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long fucking day.
So it's very hot too.
It's hot down here.
And so I said, okay, cool. And I met her. And then we went to China and we met her family. But here's the thing. You didn't need to be a genius or fluent in, Mandarin or any other language there to know what was being said. And it was very, very clear there was a lot of disapproval. A lot.
Of Jason?
A lot, yes. Massive. Like, what the fuck, right?
And what was the disapproval of exactly?
I think...
okay, can I take a guess?
Go nuts.
He's a Westerner. What the fuck you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
What are they called? Guilo? Fungwe?
Something like that, yeah.
They're
Westerner,
Gaijin in
Well,
Japan.
that's Japanese, yeah.
Gaijin, right? Number 2.
White Devil.
He's a white devil. Number 2.
Which may or may not be true.
I'm going to take a stab. There were better suitors lined up for you, and you turned your back on all of them. Because when I was there, and I'm no fucking prize, there was... Second cousin was coming out, third cousin was coming out, fourth cousin. If I had have stayed there for another month, I'm telling you now, I could have done all right for myself. But I wasn't in it to get married, right? But I'm sure that what was being said was, well, we kind of promised the family down the street or whoever it is, am I right, that you would be married off to this family, or we had made a promise, or we had made some kind of arrangement.
I don't know if it was that deep, but because that component definitely was there, and it was a very active part of the local culture. Keeping in mind that China is a country made up of many different cultural groups and different areas, right? So it's not just a uniform. Everyone's Chinese.
No, that's right.
It's quite different.
Yeah,
and I think when I rocked up, I was probably the first Westerner they'd ever seen. Firstly,
Cheryl's father, my wife's Australian, Chinese. She expressly forbid her daughters to go out with white guys. Now that's back in the 70s, 80s, right? But that was a very, very strong attitude among Chinese that they wanted their children to marry into other Chinese.
Does she know Gary the Asian? I was telling the story before. It's been a long podcast. I was telling the story about I grew up in 1979. There was a kid who was older than me. His name was Gary, but he was Asian, and I'd never seen an Asian before. And you got to back then. It wasn't like it is now.
No,
and I'm not being funny. I'm not being any of it. And
that being said, we did grow up in the Western.
We grew up in the sticks.
Right? Yeah.
We grew up in the sticks, and kids used to call him Gary the Asian. That was how it was.
It's like
Pottery
Pete.
Cool. He was cool with it. Like Pottery Pete's cool with it.
You could have called him much worse.
No,
absolutely.
Was there more than one Gary in you, at least?
No, that was the only one.
So he's the only Gary, but you felt you had to preface his name with...
Because I didn't know what he was. Because I came home. I said, "Mum, how come he looks different?" And she said,
You couldn't just be Gary.
No,
because one Gary,
because
Gary.
I would, but this is me. I came home. I told the story earlier. You weren't here, Pottery Pete, but I told the story earlier how I came home, and I said, "What's wrong with this kid, Todd?" Mum goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Well, what's wrong with his hair?" And she says, "What do you mean?" I go, "Why is it red?" She goes, "Well, he's got red hair." I go, "Fuck!" Like this back. I was 4 years old. The brain wasn't fully developed. And I said,
still never changed.
It still hasn't changed. But little things like that, when you're used to certain things and your world starts expanding, right, and you had a very sheltered life, right, now I look like that. So who's having the last laugh?
If only you had his voice. How much better would this podcast be with
Jean-Luc Picard?
Jean-Luc Picard.
Make it so.
And growling into the microphone.
Number 1.
So Jason, so was it just the fact that you were a foreigner? Was that it?
That was
basically?
definitely
That was the biggest
That
part.
was the biggest part
Yeah.
of
That was
it.
a
I
big
think they
part
were
of it.
relieved and that I wasn't Japanese, as racist as that sounds, and they can be, as you know, the Chinese can be quite.
Xenophobic.
Yeah, so it took a while.
So
Let's
this
just say
podcast
it
is
took
banned in China now. isn't it?
Oh, we're
It's-
fucked.
It's
We're
like,
getting
it's
struck.
like a Bing browser.
Yeah, well, no, Bing's back up. But but it's as you can well imagine, it took a bit of warming up, and it didn't necessarily happen in that first trip. Right?
Now, you get along pretty well with them now,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
you know, but because they come out and visit quite often.
Mind you, it's been 12 years,
But I
so
could
you'd
tell-
hope so, right?
But I could tell,
Yeah, the kids are cute. What more do you
It's
need?
right.
but I could tell that something was afoot, and I'm not a smart bloke because they would ignore him, but I was like a legend. They loved the shit out of me because I was innocent. I was just a brother traveling along with him.
Non-threatening.
He
I
was non-threatening.
I wasn't there
Yeah.
marrying anybody, right? I was buying fireworks and shit like that for the village. I was
We're doing all sorts
I
of
was
stuff.
I was just tagging along, and so they would talk to me,
Whereas
and
I'd
they
get
couldn't do
analysed,
enough for
yeah.
me. But he was chopped liver, and it was very very clear. But I think that was very. I understand why. I do understand because where they are in that particular part of the world, it is quite isolated.
Not as much now as it was. It's
But-
changed a lot over the last 12 years.
But back then, it was quite isolated.
I imagine Ray went into bat for you, mate.
Oh, absolutely. To some extent. But yeah,
To some extent.
absolutely. She always
But
has.
he's in their shit now.
No, I'm not.
Well, you
She
would.
thinks all this is hilarious.
Oh, mate, he was in the shit. Because she comes downstairs and she goes, "What's all this?"
So can I ask you a question, mate? Does sort of cultural difference play a significant factor in your marriage with Ray, your relationship?
It has. We've definitely
What sort of stuff?
have had some communication issues over the past, and I mean,
Just about around language, or
the language has definitely played a part of it because we don't speak to each other necessarily in Chinese or English. We speak often in Japanese, which is
Okay.
neither of our first languages. So we do fuck up on occasion.
yeah,
But yeah, there's been a lot of discovery in the relationship about, well, this is the way that she thinks, this is the way that I think. And I think it's taken us quite a while to get over the let's not fight about that we just see things differently.
okay, a specific example of
Not off
stuff.
not off the top of my head. I'm sure I could, if I sat down and thought about some examples, I'd come up with a few. But yeah,
Yeah, it's my understanding of Chinese culture is it's basically about food, family,
family.
and money. Yeah?
Well, here's the funny. Here's the funny because I've always said to Ray, and she'll back me up on this, that I find the Italian and the Chinese cultures to be amazingly similar
Really,
because it's all about the family first.
family first.
Food is critical.
Yeah,
And cooking together, which is something that I always remember growing up as a kid, right? And then money is another one.
yeah.
But the difference being there is it's not about how much money you've got, it's that you never talk about money at the table. That's the Italian way, right?
It's fucking Godfather.
It's
shit.
Godfather shit, right?
That's how we
that's
grew
us.
up.
We've got
That's how-
stories. That's for another
that's how I grew up. That's
podcast. But yeah, so they're very similar. They're very passionate about the family. They're very passionate about food, and in those ways, they share a lot of similarities, which for me has been fascinating to learn about.
yeah. I might do a podcast with you, mate, an interview about that.
Bring it on. If you need a place to record,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good. Pause.
I'm busting for a piss. That's the cue.
That's funny.
That's the cue.
Every
episode I'm-
single podcast has ended with someone needing
I'm
to take a
busting
piss.
for a piss.
Yep.
Thank you for everybody that's been listening, all two of you. This was sponsored by our mum. We are not on Patreon. We are now on iTunes and on Spotify. We try and upload at least once or twice a week, usually on a Saturday, at some point on Eastern Daylight Time.
Depending on how quick my internet
Wherever
connection
you
is.
are in the world, you have to work that shit out. I'm not smart enough to put that into what time zone you're in. Half the brain's in a jar somewhere. Thank you for your patronage.
True story.
We love you. We're out.
See you later, guys. Thank you, Phil. Thank you,
Phil,
Pottery
for being
Pete.
our first vet.
Thanks, guys.
Before we finish, is there anywhere
Yes.
people can find? Is there anything you wanted to
you wanna
say or
plug?
promote yourself, or you want to talk about your book that might be coming out soon?
Look, I might leave that for another time.
Do you want to come
Yeah,
back on
cool.
and tell us about your book?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, because that's all about Peru. So maybe we can have a chat.
All right,
Let's do that.
awesome. Yeah,
let's
let's
do that.
do
That'd
that.
be amazing.
Let's do that.
Because
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to you about if you went to, is it Machu
Machu
Yep,
Picchu.
Machu Picchu.
Absolutely, been there a few times.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that.
Well, let's do that as a separate thing.
Yep,
eh?
let's
Done.
do that. Done.
Done.
About
If you can
Peru.
come back on, yeah, that'd be
Awesome. Let's
fantastic.
talk specifically about Peru. Thanks, guys.
And while we're doing that, can we talk about pottery in Peru? For Pottery Pete, so he doesn't feel.
There's lots of pottery in Peru.
I'm
mate.
He doesn't
probably an
feel-
expert in pottery.
You
of the
fucking
world.
are, man. People love you. They love that
you
shit.
should see the size of this fucker's kiln. It's massive.
Oh, you can crawl into it and just get vaporized. Yeah. It's great.
I need a piss too.
See, it's done.